see the investment landscape panning out over 2015 and beyond? Bullish or bearish equity, bond, gold, etc.?
So I think the key mindset to have is one of flexibility. Because for equities, I think it's all about mix. I don't think you make money in passive products. You've got to be flexible and active, properly active, get to grips with some of the evolving themes and trends and value opportunities across the investment landscape in the equity world. I think bonds are offering low to no value at the moment, and I'd be cautious there. So I'll be looking for opportunities to switch from bonds to equities as opportunities came up. I think gold should play a very important part in investors' portfolios, and certainly on any reasonable, diversified, larger portfolio. If you don't have 10% in gold-facing assets, you need to be asking yourself what you're doing, in my opinion. That's what I would have. But finally, I would say don't ignore some of the more alternative classes as well. I don't necessarily mean hedge funds, although some people may find hedge fund investments interesting, and there will be some good ones to be having. I'm thinking also of sort of that broader range of alternative investments, foreign exchange, volatility, and related factors. Because in this uncertain, flexible world, things such as an exchange rate will also offer a very good insight into evolving and changing opportunities. It may actually be a very pure way of playing some of those changes. Similarly, some of the volatility measures out there, such as the VIX, again, I think they're going to prove to be an important augmenter around the edges to people's portfolio setup. So I'd certainly encourage people looking at some alternative areas away from the classic sort of equity bond split.
You mentioned Randgold. Are there any other particular opportunities, companies you'd like to draw attention to over the next few years?
So if you think about the backdrop and you think about the need for flexibility, the need for an acknowledgement that the macroeconomic conditions are not easy, but that there are some great growth trends out there, what are the mega themes that you should be thinking about? And as a global thematic investor, what are the things that get me really excited? So agriculture has to be one of them. Why? Because we all need to eat. It's kind of obvious, isn't it, at a certain level? But when you scrape below the surface on the industry, you need great productivity enhancements in order to square the circle in terms of the agricultural side. We're all becoming more urban, arable land availability is going down. Agricultural productivity is the way to square the circle. So you think about on the agricultural companies, where is the particular edge? And I would certainly highlight on the seeds and crop protection side, which is an area which has good barriers to entry. It's very technology-led. Companies such as Monsanto and Syngenta, US and Swiss listed respectively, are interesting medium-term investments. They have to be, because they're in an interesting spot, which I think will do well over the medium term. Asia remains a compelling story from a population demographic point of view. So what are the ways that the Asian economy, as it develops and changes, what are the ways to access that? I would highlight two. The first would be a company such as AIA on the insurance side, because when you look at what services an evolving and changing economy requires, financial services go up and up, and insurance is often the way people start in personal financial services, and certainly as they go up the income spectrum and wealth spectrum, they tend to add more of them. AIA is a fascinating business, completely Asian-centric, listed on the Hong Kong stock market, and again, talks to me on a medium-term basis of fitting in very much with those thematic aspects. One other one in Asia I would highlight would be actually one which is very out of favour at the moment. It's good to find some out of favour investments and link them to longer-term themes. And actually, as far as I can see, with the rise of the Chinese consumer, the Macau gambling stocks are also fascinating businesses. Why? Because I cannot see China liberalising gambling across its entire country. It will use Macau as the conduit for that. And whilst there are some controversies around that whole industry, ultimately, if you stick with some of the established, sensible, well-capitalised players, then you will add a lot of value over time, particularly from the current compressed level. So a company such as SJM, which is listed on the Hong Kong stock market, the original listed Macau company, is of great interest, I would say. So we've covered agriculture, Asia, a couple of sort of sub-themes in Asia as well, gold mining. I certainly wouldn't ignore some of the other diversified miners as well. Somebody like a BHP Billiton with some real first grade, first quartile cost assets. Again, you've seen a share which has been under pressure, albeit it's bumped up a little bit over recent weeks. Again, from any reasonable perspective, that's going to be a positive. And then in terms of perhaps something of a more industrial nature, and because we haven't mentioned an overtly Eurozone company yet, so let's mention one which I think's of particular interest. If you take a look at a company like Air Liquide in France, so you immediately think France, my goodness, haven't they got some challenges? Isn't the Eurozone troubled, etc.? Why on earth are we looking at a French-listed industrial company? Here's why. Air Liquide is in industrial gases. Industrial gases are ever more used in a variety of processes around the world, industrial processes. It's a very, very difficult industry to get into. Big barriers to entry, big know-how requirements, big distribution requirements. It's dominated by a few companies around the world, one of which is Air Liquide. And guess what? You may be buying a French-listed company, but you're buying something which also has as much of its sales in Asia as it does in Europe, and that position clearly will just attenuate over time. So if I had to highlight one Eurozone company on a multi-year perspective to buy and hold, today it would be Air Liquide.
People will pay handsomely for that advice, sir. Great stuff, thank you. If there's just one investment FSB readers should be in over the next 5 years, what would you say it should be?
So one investment would be gold, and the reason for that is you think about the backdrop we have at this moment in time. We have a backdrop of too much debt and limited equity. And typically that has favoured asset-backed strategies and asset-backed investments. And gold ultimately is that. Now, you can say gold and immediately you think gold bug, you think about sort of apocalypse and things like that. That doesn't need to be the scenario. But you do need to define how you're going to access the gold, in my opinion. Because if you think about the ways investors typically have accessed gold, they've bought things like ETFs, which may or may not be physically backed. Now the trouble is, buying a financial instrument, particularly one which may be a derivative type structure, can cause a lot of problems and issues. We all know that buying physical gold, you're going to have some storage issues and security issues and related. So I personally like the concept of actually looking at gold equities, because my perception would be, if you can find that happy medium of rising production, strong gold grade rates, and also a management team which are switched on and understand that this is an environment where they need to keep their costs under control in order to fully benefit from it, that could be a very happy medium backdrop. So the one investment, if I had a 5-year period, could only make one investment and had to look at it again in 5 years' time, in the gold space would be Randgold Resources, which is London listed, has a listing in the States as well, invests in Africa, is a large cap vehicle, but has strong gold grade, focused management team and rising production. It's been a highly successful investment for me over the last few years, but I think it has a lot further to go. And if I had to have that rifle shot set up, it wouldn't be one that I would suggest, no matter how much I like Randgold at the moment. Clearly to have your money in just one investment never makes sense. And so I would strongly urge anybody looking at this to think about a diversified investment strategy based on all sorts of important criteria, such as asset backing, sustainable dividends, predictability, and edge. Randgold, though, would be amongst that for me and is currently in my personal holdings.
Very nice advice. Thank you very much, Chris.